So let me begin. And the purpose of this session is to recap whatever online sessions I had given earlier and to sort out your queries if there are any. We'll also have some short quiz type of thing just to check your understanding. And we will also have a short uh, session on the course project, which has been getting postponed day by day and week after week. So we'll try to close it in next 15 days. So let's begin with the first part, which will be about 5 to 10 minutes, where I will cover the three topics, that is stress concentration, the contact stresses, and torsion of non-circular bars. So let me start with recap about the stress concentration part. So we have seen some examples where the stress concentration occurs. So it is very common situation wherever there is a geometric discontinuities, which we have discussed in the lecture. You will have the stress concentration coming in, and it's mainly used in design to correct the classical formula, the stress what we obtain by classical formulae. At the discontinuity region, they cannot be used as they are. So we need to amplify or to correct them. And these factors are an empirical way or approximate way to do the calculations. It is not an accurate method, but it works and it had been working for more than a century. Okay, so not only geometric discontinuities, but it can occur because of the internal flaws that the material may be having, and it may be of random shapes or the weld deposits which by their nature are irregular, or even some inclusion. So what point I want to drive here is that they can occur because of non-design features as well. Okay, this is the key or the heart of this particular topic, that the stress concentration factor is defined as the maximum theoretical stress at the discontinuity divided by the nominal stress near the discontinuity. So if you have a sort of step bar subjected to load and you want to know what is the highest stress level at this region, so this is the numerator of this equation. So how much highest stress will be there at this point will be given by numerator, and the denominator is what you know by the classical formula. So you know the stress away from the discontinuity either in the narrow part of this plate or the broader part of this plate. So which nominal stress is considered for calculations is always given near to the formula for the stress concentration factor. The stress concentration factors, they are available and obtained through different means, and they are available to you in the form of either design charts or formulae. So the left hand side you can get from design book. The denominator you will know by your classical strength of material approach, and you will know how much is the highest stress if that is what you want to calculate. In case you want to design a component, you know how much higher stress you want to limit it to. So this will be then allowable stress. So it can be either UTS by factor of safety. So in case you want to design a component, you know how much stress you can go up to. So maximum stress or numerator is known, and then you will know how much nominal stress can be tolerated at that component, and then you size the component so that the nominal stresses are within the limit. So this is the crux of this particular topic. And the further things are the numerical methods which we have discussed. So I will not go into that at this time. So let me move to the second topic. So the contact stresses, we have seen the different scenarios in which the contact stresses will occur. And the contact stresses, there are different geometric types where the contact stresses can occur. In this course, we are considering the most commonly occurring geometric shapes, that is cylinder to cylinder, and another is sphere to sphere. And we have also seen how the cylinder to cylinder or sphere to sphere can be approximated or can be converted into cylinder to flat surface or sphere to flat surface situation. Okay, then we are okay, so we are now, the theory is based on the calculations or the research done by Hertz, and essentially it means that whenever a body is touching any surface, two bodies are touching each other, the theoretical contact is either a line contact or point contact. But because we are considering bodies as deformable, there will be a deformation of the contact surface, and because of which there is a finite width of contact which will support the contacting bodies, and there will be a finite stress. If there is a point contact or line contact, the stresses would be infinite. But in this case, the stresses would be of finite nature, and they can be calculated by using the formulae which we have given. So we are not covering the derivation of this formulae. We are we are learning how to use this formulae to design the components. That is, if you are designing two cylinders coming in contact with each other, like in project, you are considering your jumping platform is coming in contact with cylindrical fulcrum. So you want to keep the stresses at that junction within the limit. So how to do that would be given by these equations. So in this equation, the first part is finding out the contact stress, rather the contact width, which is denoted here, and then calculate the contact pressure, the maximum contact pressure which occurs at the center of contact zone. And based on that, then you can calculate the remaining stresses. And in this context, we have seen how the stress vary. So we have also seen that the stresses vary. The normal stresses vary, or they reduced as you go towards the inside of the body. So for example, if you are considering this is two cylinders touching each other, this is the bottom cylinder, this is the top cylinder. As you move along the radius of this body, you will find, so this is the direction which is plotted in this particular graph. You will find that the sigma x, sigma y, sigma z, they keep on decreasing. However, the maximum shear stress, it peaks at some depth below the surface, and that is given by the expression that has been shown here. So you need to remember this expression. They will not be available to you during the exam. Okay, next we are considering two cylinders in contact. In similar fashion, you calculate what is the contact width and then calculate the maximum shear stress location. And then we have seen a numerical problem based on this. And let me move to the last topic of today's session, or recap of the last session, that is the torsion of non-cylindrical components. So in this case, we are considering that, or rather we are understanding, in the previous semester, you have seen how to calculate the stresses in a circular shaft. Here we are looking into the torsion of non-circular shafts, and the situations which arise here are discussed here. So Allen key or shaft of a a door handle or the shank or the blade of a key or robotic arm. So there are many situations where you will find that the torsional load acts on non-circular cross sections and you want to design them. So for this purpose, this theory is important. And we have seen that the important difference between the circular cross section where the sections remain flat, they don't warp, whereas in non-circular cross section, there is a warping of the cross section and that needs to be taken into account. So although we have not seen the full derivation, but we have seen the concept of warping function which gets related to the value of uz. So the displacement in z direction is defined in terms of warping function, and this warping function is independent of z, where z is the along the length of shaft. So at any point you will find that whatever warping is happening, that is uniform. So at section number 1, 2, 3, all three sections will warp by exactly same nature that is defined by the warping function. So that is an assumption and it is true for most of the practical situations. And we have seen that this is based on a displacement approach. So we start with the displacements, and from displacement we derive to find the strains, and from strain using the Hooke's law you can find out what are the stress values. And once you get the stress values, you use the equations of equilibrium that we have studied earlier to get some insight of the problem. So we know that the warping function, it satisfies the Laplace equation, or the all the warping functions are harmonic functions. And we also got the equation for torsion in terms of the warping function. And we have seen the two cases, one with the classical circular cross section. So the formula, the warping function for this is constant. And another is elliptical cross section where the warping function is such that it is the, the quadrants which are marked here, they get depressed, and the other cross section, they get sort of bulged out along when you twist this particular cross section. And stress values and other details are given in this case. You don't have to remember this formula. If required, they would be given to you during the exam. Uh, by the way, I will this all this session is getting recorded, so those who are not able to attend, they can, or you want to review something, you can revisit this particular session. And in this topic, we also seen the for torsion of thin box sections. So where the thickness of the bar, it's a hollow, it is for hollow bars. And when the thickness of these hollow bars is very small compared to the dimensions, this particular theory can be used. And we introduced a concept of shear flow. The shear flow is given as product of the thickness and the shear stress acting at any point. So wherever thickness becomes small, the shear stress will increase, and wherever thickness becomes bigger, the shear stress will increase. So it is something which is analogous to the movement of fluid in a channel. So you can consider the wall as the channel in which fluid is circulating, and the velocity of fluid is analogous to the shear stress. So that is what this flow term amounts to. And we have seen the derived equation for torsion versus the shear flow and area, where area is the mean area which is subtended by the mean line of your cross section. So remember that A is not the cross sectional area of cross section, but it is the area subtended, that is a solid area subtended by the mean thickness line. And we have also seen how to calculate the angle of twist for this particular section upon action of the torque, and it involves an line integral, which we have also seen how to calculate this value of this line integral. So let's Having seen this, let's have a quick understanding of okay, so let's have sort of a quick quiz which connects you to this topic. So I'll be displaying some questions and you will have to answer it. So it's a polling question. So everybody will come to know how the percentages are coming. So are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm launching the poll and kindly answer the questions. So first is related to stress concentration. So there are multiple choice questions which you will see on your screen and you'll have to select the correct ones. So I launched a poll. Maybe you will require 2-3 minutes to answer them. So in this poll, there are 3 questions. Most of you are have done. So let me stop the question session. And yeah, the first question is what are the causes of stress concentration? So in this case, the right answer is bolt holes, weld porosity, and surface scratch. All 3 of them give the stress concentration effect. Whereas flat bar with tapering width, it is just a continuous changing geometry. So here we don't talk about stress concentration. The second is which of the following expressions for stress concentration factor? So right answer is the second one, maximum theoretical stress by the nominal stress. And the last one is which of the following method is not used for determining stress concentration factor method? So finite element method is used, photoelastic method is also used, and last one, analytical solution is also used. However, optimization method is something which is not explicitly used. It can be used, but in more research type of situation, not normal situation, it will not be used for calculation. Okay, so so most of you have done well in giving the right answers. So any questions on this topic of stress concentration from your side? Anybody has any question on stress concentration factor problems?
This is Mandar. So I have a question that the bolts are having threads. So these threads are having stress concentration on the effect of loading.
Yes, the bolt threads are examples of stress concentration factor, and they are taken into account when you are designing the bolt. So in the next semester, we'll be learning in machine design, the design of power screws. So there, this effect will be considered in the design of the body of the bolt.
Thank you, sir.
So this is a easy topic from exam point of view, and you should not miss these questions. The numerical problems are straight away. You should be able to, only skill you require is reading from graph or substituting proper numericals in the equations. So that's okay. So let's move to the second topic because we are having how much? We are having about half an hour left. So let's cover the second topic, which is related to contact stress. So I'm sending another poll and we will do in the similar fashion. So let me just quickly go through the questions. So first one was copper cylinder versus steel cylinders. So same dimensions and same force. So here we have to understand that the softer materials will deform more, as a result of which the contact area as well will be more, and contact stress will be less. So in this case, copper will have lower contact stress is correct, and steel cylinders will have smaller contact area than copper. So first and last are the correct ones. The second one is wrong, and smaller copper will not have contact area. So third one is also wrong. Cylindrical body subjected to contact stress, the initiation of the crack. So we are assuming that the materials are ductile and they follow the maximum shear stress failure theory. So in which case the maximum shear stress occurs below the surface. So that is why we are considering the failure to occur below the surface. If you are considering material which are following the maximum principal stress theory, then maybe the first one, that surface, the contacting surface, would have been correct answer. But most of the contact type of designs, they will involve ductile materials. Otherwise, you will get very small fatigue life for those materials. So assuming ductile materials, the second answer is correct, which is what is expected. And the last question is again, instead of geometry, we are having in case A, small diameter balls, and in case B, large diameter balls. So in this case, we have to understand that when two smaller bodies are in touch, or rather when two small radii in touch, you will get more amount of stress or less amount of contact area. So case A will have larger contact stress, so that is correct. That is second option. And case A, since it is having larger contact stress, it will have smaller contact area. So the last answer is not correct. Okay, any questions related to the topic of contact stresses? Okay, so let me stop the polling and share the results. Okay, so let's discuss the questions. So the first question was, which of the following are differences in deformation behavior of circular and non-circular shaft? The first one is cross-section of bar remains or does not remain flat during loading, which is correct. The circular bars, it remains flat, whereas in non-circular bars, the cross-section get warped. Second option is non-circular bars are always harder to deform than circular bars. So that is not the case. So it is not hard or soft. It is material property, not the cross-sectional property. Angle of twist is or is not proportional to axial distance from reference plane. So the angle of twist theta, whether it is circular or non-circular bar, it is always proportional to the distance from the support. So it is not a difference. So in both cases, it is proportional. And last is not the correct option. What is second question? What is unit of shear flow Q? So Q is defined as shear stress multiplied by thickness. So it is Newton per millimeter square multiplied by millimeter. So it is Newton per millimeter. So second is the correct option. And lastly, consider a thin box section of square shape with mean side of square as 20 millimeters and wall thickness of 2 millimeters. What is the value of parameter A? So as we have seen, the parameter A or the area is the solid area encompassed by the mid surface. So it will be 20 multiplied by 20. So 400 is the right answer. So I think that is the three topics. So as I can see from the results that many of you are yet to start studying this topic. And okay. So any questions on this topic? The question on the topic of torsion of non-circular bars. Okay, so I understand that you have got another session starting at 12 o'clock. So you are not in a mood to extend this session. Maybe that is the reason that you are not responding. Okay, so before anybody has any question on in general, not related to torsion of non-circular bar, I will close on discussion on the course project. So before that, any questions on the 3 topics that we discussed? Or in general, the way this session is going and any suggestions you have? In the sense, are you getting something through this session or it is just becoming a sort of core?
It was a good recap for the assignment, sir.
Okay, that's good statement, good and safe statement. Yeah.
So it was very well instrumented, especially the polling, which was something which was very good to the session. And I would further encourage this.
Yeah, it allows you to at least participate in more where I will know that you are participating, and otherwise I have no means of knowing what you are doing at your end. So I will just have check on the quality of this recording. So just share how is your experience in terms of video quality and audio quality. So, yeah, it seems that almost half of you are calling it excellent and other less than half find it okay sort of, but nobody is having any trouble in listening or watching. And let me close by a short discussion about the course project which got stalled because of various reasons. And okay, so I am sharing the screen of the course project. There is no way of knowing what I'm sharing. So are you seeing the topic course project?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because I don't know what exactly is getting, no, rather I know what I've clicked on, but I don't know whether it is the one which I'm talking about. Okay, so here we are talking about the course project, and we already discussed in the 2 batches in their tutorial classes got full discussion on this topic, or rather most of the topics, but let me just quickly recap. So in this project, you have to optimize design of a diving board. So diving board is nothing but a rectangular plate, which is what you are trying to design. So you have a rectangular plate on which a person is jumping, and you are trying to find out what is the, what should be the thickness, what should be the width, and so on for this particular board. So in order to do this, and the board is supported at one end by a pin support. So this is the pin support end, and there is a fulcrum here, which provides so as to make this a simply supported beam. So it becomes a simply supported beam with an overhang load. So that is how you will be doing the initial calculations. So the first part is reaction forces and shear forces. So those you will be calculating based on the overhang beam approximation. The second is calculate the cross-sectional dimensions, or assuming cross-sectional dimensions as 305 by 32 millimeters with given material properties, you have to find out maximum deflection. So here you have to use the Macaulay's method, or yeah, that is the best method which we can apply here to find out the deflection of this particular beam. The third one is factor of safety. The material is brittle fiberglass with strength value given in longitudinal direction. So here you will have to calculate the bending stress and check whether the bending stress is within the allowable, which is given in terms of the ultimate tensile strength. The part D is about the fatigue design, which we did not talk about. So just like materials have properties like ultimate strength, yield strength, there is another property which is known as endurance strength. So endurance strength is that stress level where even if you apply that stress infinite number of times, so here we are considering cyclic load. So stress is varying from one level to another level, so sigma max to sigma min. So if the range of this stress remains within the endurance limit, then the body will have infinite life. So we have to check if the endurance strength is given. So typically the endurance strength is 40% to 50% of ultimate tensile strength. So that is a thumb rule. You'll be learning more about that in the next semesters, but just to know that this is a property which is important because most of the practical problems will be having cyclic loads or number of loading cycles during their life. So in that case, the procedure remains exactly same as what we do for static design, except that you are comparing against the endurance strength. If you want infinite life, if you want finite life, that is you want this board to last for, let's say, 10 years, in which it is going to withstand 10,000 cycles or maybe more. So that is more complex calculations, which is not required here. So here we are doing a simple check against the endurance strength, which will ensure that infinite life for your board. Okay, the part E is related to the contact stresses. So you have been given the fulcrum radius and the board is flat. So it is cylinder versus flat plate contact stress situation. And the force acting at these contacting bodies will be equal to reaction at that fulcrum point. So you require material. So the proper E values and nu values of fiberglass are given to you. That is, a board material is given to you. The fulcrum material is given as aluminum. So you have to find out from internet or design data book. If you have access to them, you can talk to your third year friends. They can give you the reference and you can find out the E value and nu value for aluminum from these books. The part F is related to the strain energy. We have not covered that topic in this particular course. Essentially, when a man jumps from certain height, the potential energy from that height will have to be absorbed by the deforming body, in this case, the jumping board. So how much energy would be stored in that board, you will have to calculate. So you have to assume the board as a spring of certain stiffness K. So when the spring gets deflected by amount X, the energy stored is half Kx square. So that you have to match with whatever energy you are supplying. How to find the K for the board is what is the key for solving this particular case. So I think, yeah. Okay, the last part is related to the topic of fracture mechanics. Again, we have not covered that. So we'll be covering this particular topic, the fracture mechanics topics, in this week. So I'll be issuing lectures on that topic this week. So you should be able to solve the problem using that particular knowledge. Okay, so here the challenge is to design this board so as to have minimum weight. So minimum weight, obviously one can think of reducing the dimensions, that is reducing the thickness, width, and the length. So in this case, you don't have choice about the length. So the length of board is 2 meters, that is fixed. So this dimension is fixed. The other dimension is the width of this board. So that is this dimension what we are talking about. So there also a person has to stand on this board, so you cannot make it very narrow and make it risky for the person. So the dimension which is given 305 is also fixed. So you don't have now freedom to change the length. You don't have freedom to change the width. You have only freedom to change the thickness. And there is one more thing that you can change. So somebody, if he or she has thought about, can you share any other idea by which you can reduce the weight? Which
We
then
can change the material.
Entire class can use that idea.
We can change the material.
We can change the material. The material is also fixed. So the material, whatever is given, fiberglass.
So we can use the I section.
We can use the I section.
Like
That I think the flat plate would have the minimum weight. You mean you're saying I section in this direction?
Yeah, but that sideways we are cutting very small amount in the side.
Okay, so I did not get this idea, but okay, you may be right. So one can think of a cross section. Any other idea? We'll close this session in another 2-3 minutes. So I just want to know if somebody has thought something something different. Anything else?
So instead of using the rectangular board, can we use a board where the front side is circular so that we can save some
Okay, yeah, that's a good idea. So you can have the front side instead of circular, you can have it rounded. That is what you are saying, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that will reduce weight to some extent. That is correct. Or one can, in general, talk about having a sort of elliptical shape there. But as you move, that means the person cannot move to the tip of the board where he will get the maximum jump or maximum flexing. Any other idea is there? Okay, so anybody has any other idea, or let me give the idea what I have in mind.
So can we make holes in these plates?
Yeah, good. I'm happy that who is this speaking?
Aditya Thapar.
Yeah, Aditya. So that's very good. So let's give a clap to Aditya, who vocalized his idea. Maybe some of you have thought about it, and yeah, that's good. So you can make holes. So obviously you cannot make a big hole. So can you elaborate your idea further?
Sir, by making a small skirt, a small hole in this plate.
Yeah, so a sort of sieve. So that will not disturb the person. So you can make a sort of series of holes. And these hole sizes you can control. So you can give small hole sizes where the stresses are more and larger where the stresses are less. Something of that type. You need not optimize to that extent, but you providing holes is one of the ideas in which you can reduce. And as soon as you provide the holes, you have to apply one of the theory what we discussed today. So which theory you will have to apply for designing in the presence of holes?
Stress concentration.
So you have to calculate the stress concentration factor effect. So size of hole will decide the stress concentration. As you start making holes smaller and smaller, you will find that the stress concentration will be more and more, but the nominal stresses will be different. Okay, so that's where we will stop for today because you have another session coming in. Any other questions, general, you want to discuss?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir, I'm Jay. I have a doubt.
Yeah, yes, tell me, Jay.
So for this course project, can we use variable thickness? Like
yes,
the
you can use that.
Thickness will decrease towards the end.
Yeah, that's idea which I expected. Yeah, so that is, yes, that's also idea. So you can keep on stepping the this particular board where the thickness keeps on reducing. So either you can give tapering thickness, so in which case there is no stress concentration, or if you give step change, that is half the width, one thickness, another half, another thickness, you will get stress concentration wherever you are giving step. So there are many alternatives available. So
Yes, sir.
one can think of finding the best one.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, sir.
So thank you all, and we will be always in touch through Google Classroom, and I will be issuing the lectures on the remaining 3 topics. One is the fracture mechanics, second is material plasticity, and third one is strain energy. So these are the 3 main topics remaining, which I'll be issuing in next 15 days. We should be able to cover these topics. Okay, thank you and bye all.